Can you spot the difference between these restaurants? This group has outdoor dining, while this group doesn't. If we assume that this flyer is correct, then one of the reasons for this difference could be from being too close to noisy public transit train lines, right? Well, oddly enough, the exact opposite is true. These establishments all have outdoor dining despite the fact that they are right next to a busy train line which services freight trains, Amtrak, and two regional lines. But that doesn't stop people from enjoying the outdoor dining. On the other hand, these establishments are all right next to the road, which this flyer tells us will be ruined by the noise of a metro line. But if they're already in the ideal scenario of only being next to nice, quiet car traffic, then why don't they have any outdoor dining? That question is what led to me grabbing a decibel meter, wandering all around Los Angeles testing sound levels, and, at the risk of sounding like a YouTube cliche, the results will shock you! Hi, I'm Nathan, someone who doesn't mind creepily standing on street corners while I test sound levels, and this is Save Money, Save the Planet. The first place that I traveled was over here behind a Ralph's. This way, I could have a very quiet area which gets disturbed when the train goes by. I took a sample for 5 minutes because LA trains and metro don't run that frequently, and they won't anytime soon. Anyways, here's the result. A minimum of 48.8 decibels, maximum of 85.1, and an average of 65.7. So in other words, it's a very tranquil area which gets disturbed by a train. The peak level of noise manages to almost get into the legal action level, but the average is very safe. Next, I went over to Sepulveda Boulevard, the street which this flyer informed me will be ruined by the noise of a train. After taking a 5-minute sample of the noise levels, I got a minimum of 55.4 decibels, a maximum of 88.7, and an average of 71.7. That's right. The boulevard is already louder than a train track on every single measurement. When you factor in the fact that trains will likely run on 7.5 or 10-minute intervals during peak hours, and even less frequently off-peak, then you realize that the train is actually the quieter option. Now, there's actually a chance that 1 or 2 LA natives happen upon this video, and you're confused right now. You might be saying something like, "Hey, I've driven down Sepulveda Boulevard. I don't remember it being loud." Well, that's because our car cabins have been progressively improved over the years in order to help lessen this type of noise. That's why I took another measurement from inside my car while a group of cars drove by. Now the numbers were a minimum of 37.6 decibels, maximum of 52.4, and an average of 47.3. So we can engineer in fixes which have a huge effect on the level of sound experienced. In fact, let's go back to that original flyer. Didn't they complain about a lid being placed over the metro line? Is it possible that this is actually an engineered solution to reduce noise levels? Well, in order to test that theory, I had to, yeah, you guessed it, take more sound measurements. For this experiment, I went behind these apartment buildings so that I could walk along the 134 freeway, which gave me a minimum of 70.7 decibels, maximum of 81.1, and an average of 76.9. Then, I hopped over to the other side of the apartment complex and took another set of measurements, which gave me a minimum of 52.5, a maximum of 62.2, and an average of 57.1. Because the decibel scale is logarithmic, the new noise level is actually 1/100th the volume of the previous one. And we managed to do that just by getting some distance from the noise source and putting a barrier in the way. So that lid which is being put on the metro line is likely a method to reduce the level of noise that the neighborhood will experience. If we feel that the rest of the track may be too noisy, then we shouldn't try to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Instead, let's push for more engineering solutions to the noise. The noise which, again, is actually quieter than the road that we already have in place. In the end, this research led to me creating these 3 straightforward steps which we need to advocate for in order to reduce the noise levels in our communities. First, convert more roadways into public transit, such as trains, trams, and electric buses. This way, we'll be able to have intermittent noise instead of sustained noise. Next, move arterial transport corridors, such as stroads and heavy rail lines, one block away from heavy pedestrian areas, such as city centers. This will strike the balance desired between speed and quiet so that customers can still get to the location at a moderately fast pace until the last block, but they're not constantly agitated by the extreme noise the whole time that they're enjoying the location. And lastly, if we can't do steps 1 and 2, or they don't provide the noise levels which we desire, then we need to employ engineered solutions in order to dampen the noise. There's actually lots of different ways to do this, but I'll just link this video by Not Just Bikes, because he goes into depth on a couple cool ones. Actually, now that I think about it, maybe I should make my own flyer, put these 3 rolls on it, and then just staple it to the other one every time I see it. Yeah, that sounds like the exact type of passive-aggressive action that my community needs. I'm only half joking, honestly, because these are important conversations for us to have. We're working hard to figure out how we need to change our society in order to reduce emissions, and moving towards public transit, that's a huge part of it. First, public transit has lower emissions than personal cars. I know that you might look at a graph like this and get a false sense of hope that getting enough people into your car will make it have similar emissions to public transit. And then, if you change the car to electric, you can again just put a butt in every seat and your car actually has less emissions than public transit. But the truth is that we simply aren't doing that. Look at promotional footage from the 50s. There's one person in most of those cars. Look at current day statistics. We average less than 2 people per car. The truth is that we simply aren't using cars to their full capacity, and we're never gonna. So let's go ahead and admit that making cars have less emissions than public transit is a pipe dream, and let's focus instead on making public transit able to reliably hit its capacity numbers. We do that by building transit lines which go to the correct places, have full dedicated right-of-way so that they can remain on time, and have high enough frequency that passengers can reliably just go to a stop, wait a couple of minutes, and have the next vehicle show up. And they rarely ever have to look at a confusing timetable again. Cities that do this reliably notice that more citizens ditch their cars, which reduces how much space we need to dedicate to wide streets and parking lots. Then we get to use that space for stuff like housing and businesses. Now that things are closer together, people get to more stuff throughout the day by simply walking or biking there, which reduces our society's emissions even more. So next time someone tries to drag you into a pointless conversation about whether or not public transit is too loud, just send them this video. Hopefully that'll help you move on to the more important conversations more quickly. And if I'm describing the type of society that you want to help build, then you should definitely hit the subscribe button, because I release videos similar to this every month. And if you simply can't wait a whole month to watch another video of mine, then I suggest you watch this one next. Cause face it, you think public transit is expensive to build, don't you? Well, this video will help you see that it is actually much less expensive than building more car infrastructure. Alright, I'll see you next month.